And that pure mind is the practice of happiness. The practice of happiness, not the practice of getting or judging or being better than or saying polite things to other people so that they will like you. What we're really after here is that you practice being grateful for what you have rather than focusing on what you want. Practice being grateful to the person who's nice to you, but then also practicing kindness back. Just do the things we've been talking about for the last 4 weeks and see if you don't have a better Christmas than you had before. I want to welcome you to the last Sunday before Christmas. So if you haven't gotten my present yet, I'm just a reminder. I was thinking, it reminded me of this. So this talk's supposed to be about joy, so you're going to forgive me for starting with a joke. Man and his wife were driving. He was driving. She was sitting in the passenger seat. And as he was driving along, he says, "So, what do you want for Christmas?" And she says, looking out the window without a hesitation, "A divorce." And he says, "I wasn't thinking about spending that much." Which reminds me of, so as you know, this is a season of lights, as it's often been said. And the reason it is this yesterday was the shortest day, the darkest day of the year. And darkness had been building for some time. As you know, gradually the days get shorter, and yesterday the sunrise was at 7:13 and the sunset was at 5:06, so it was just about 10 hours of daylight. And by midsummer, it will be more like 14 hours of daylight. But at this juncture, they call this a solstice because things seem to stand still. The moon the sun doesn't seem to move very much in this moment. And so what I would like y'all to do is to realize what you do when you have come to the still place, where you're in the bardo, as the Buddhists would say. You know the bardo state? The bardo state is what they say happens to you after you die before you're reincarnated, or happens when something is ended and before something else begins. And it is, the analogy they use is you toss a ball in the air before you catch it. That's the bardo state. And in some ways, this time of year is the bardo. We're in between. And we're right here on the cusp of the days getting longer and the days finally stopping getting shorter. And so many of us, I think, or enough of us that this is relevant, are in the bardo state too. I've talked to a lot of people, we go in like, so exactly what's next for us? What is my goal? What is my direction? Where do I take my life? And some people are very clear at this moment, but many are not. And we're right here on the verge of something grand. And what I think as a community we're on the verge of is this subtle but pervasive sense of well-being. And you may not feel like you're on the verge of that yet, but by the time I finish today, because the purpose of this church for many years has been to do our mission statement, which is we're a spiritual community awakening to our divine nature through love, service, and personal transformation. And why would we want to awaken to our divine nature? Because that would allow us to bring our light into the world as clearly as possible, would allow our worries to be as minimized as possible, and our good sense of well-being to be raised to its highest level. Because the divine nature of who you are is beautiful. Your core nature, your real self, is able to withstand anything. It is the container of all experience. It is the still place that allows all things to emerge from it. And your ability to recognize this divine nature, which has never left you, and you don't have to go get, but you need to come back to experience it on a personal level. You know, Michael's going to be doing the lessons soon, on January 4th, on Patanjali. Patanjali may or may not have been a real person, or maybe just a fictitious person that everybody put their wisdom in. But he has these sutras, which means stitches, that are these wisdom pieces that if you study those, you get an insight into the nature of how to awaken yourself. And I turned to Michael earlier, desperate because I was missing my notes for today. And I said, Michael, can you give me a quote from Patanjali? And he goes, yes, sure. When the mind is as pure as the soul, illumination will dawn. And so what we've been doing over these last 4 weeks, including this week, is practicing what a pure mind would practice, what it would be like. And where we are right now is gladness, joy. I want to tell you a little story. Over the last 2 months or so, I started doing a practice of gratitude for 30 minutes a day, starting about 7:35 in the morning and lasting until about 8:15. It was just my practice. I would start going, I'm grateful, and I would find stuff to be grateful for. And it was really quite a beautiful thing. And it was just a mental attitude I was holding. And no matter what was happening in my life, you know, if I was driving and there was traffic, or I was doing anything, I just held this attitude of gratitude for about 35, 40 minutes a day. And as I said a few weeks ago, I just get up here and I'm happy. So right now, the consequence of 6 weeks of practicing gratitude 30 minutes a day, I just feel happy. Almost all the time. Now that's a drug worth getting. And I'm not even practicing that much anymore, but I'm just grateful. You know, I look around my house and go, I'm grateful. As Tia was saying, I have a fire. Well, I don't really, I have a furnace. But the feeling is everything is okay. Now, I've also taken a hiatus from tuning into the news, which I used to always keep the news on nonstop. There was always something was happening, something was churning to make me bring my attention to it. Have you noticed that they don't sell sweetness on the news? They scour the world to tell you what's wrong. Have you noticed? I mean, they scour the world. I mean, you will hear about a car wreck in Texas. We're not even close to Texas. And there are 1,000 car wrecks every day somewhere. I mean, that's a low-hanging fruit, not very good. Or you can turn on the local news and they'll show you who was just arrested and which house burned. Any of my business? Probably none of yours either. And yet we seem to think we need to be informed. But about those things, I don't think it matters much. Because if you can't affect it, well, do you really need to be thinking about it? Shouldn't you be paying attention to the things you can control? Or maybe paying attention to things that are going right in your life? Or maybe what you really should do is just say, forget, I'm not going to pay attention to anything except what I'm saying. And I'm saying I'm grateful. I'm saying I'm happy. I'm saying I'm a lucky person. Everything in my life is working out. I don't know how yet. Sometimes it's not obvious, but it's working out. And if you think about your life, maybe it hasn't been a bowl of cherries, as they say, but it has brought you to this point, has it not? And are you now on the verge of awakening to who you really are because you have decided to do that? Because suffering has brought you away from thinking objects can get me to happiness. Objects can get you there for at least a minute, sometimes for a day or two, sometimes for a week if it really was something fantastic. But in general, objects will never get you there or leave you there, at least. You'll work for it, you'll go for it, you'll spend for it, you'll do all that, you'll have it, and then it will fade. Right? Classic car. A car does that. Ooh, it even smells like plastic. Wow. And then it fades. Everything in the world that is made of composition fades. But the light that you're after is the one that endures. So you know this whole story about Hanukkah. Hanukkah starts about the 2nd century. And it happens because the Maccabees actually won. For a while they controlled their country again, and they were celebrating. They were lighting candles, lighting not a candle but a lamp. And they only had enough oil for one day, and it burned for 8. And that's why we celebrate Hanukkah, because it reminds us that if you will start with the light, it may be much better, much longer than you ever thought possible. If you will go for the light and not for the darkness, perhaps things will turn out better than you thought, more than you should have expected it to happen. Maybe if you just go for gratitude, maybe you'll find that you really don't need whatever you thought you needed. Maybe you already have the very things that make a person happy. Right this moment, you could be grateful you have a breath. You have breath. You know, that you're able to sit upright. That you have people around you who are sharing your own quest to be happy, fulfilled, and part of a community. You have right in the very place you're sitting, clothes, chairs, company, ideas, hope. These are great things, overlooked if you choose to look at what's not working. But light a candle and maybe you'll find it's not 1 but 8. It's different. That you have more than you ever thought ever really realized just how great you have it. I personally think that's how you get rich too. You get rich with friends, you get rich with experience, you get rich sometimes with money by being grateful. You get rich with everything that you have because you have so much already. And the practice of craving, the practice of wanting something you don't have is what Buddha said causes suffering. We haven't even got to Jesus yet. Jeepers creepers. It's But Buddha said, you know, the cause of suffering is craving. And so wanting, okay, most of you guys are not that young. Neither am I. But it's remarkable how we could get to be this age and still think there's something out there that will make us happy. Isn't it? Isn't it remarkable? Like, duh. Were you not paying attention for the first 70 years of your life? Didn't you get a lot of things and then did you stay happy? Was that the solution? Was it? All I want for Christmas, right? All I want for Christmas. All I want for Christmas. Or I won't be happy. I remember I got a bicycle once, but what I wanted was a BB gun, and I would not be happy. Right? But how many more times have I done that? Or I've actually gotten it. And that didn't make me happy. Right? Why don't we travel? That will make me happy. Maybe. How about you just can't count on anything outside of yourself as a permanent solution to your mood? The only thing that can really get you there could be described as a pure mind. A mind that has trained itself to go not for what's missing, but for the joy of having what you have. The mind that is about generosity and compassion so you don't feel isolated and separate. A mind that has practiced kindness enough that you realize that you are good on the inside and a loving person yourself. A mind that has practiced generosity in so many ways that you realize that you could never be totally without. This is a purification of the mind. It allows you to see the clarity of who you really are. That you are the divine presence made manifest as a human being in this place. And we will continue to give you practices for that, but today's practice, in my opinion, and a killer practice, is to be grateful. And it is so cheap. You don't have to go buy anything. You don't even have to get a gratitude journal with special cover on it. It says gratitude on it. Some flowers and maybe scented pages or something. Our job is really to transform the way we see the world, not to change the world to make it fit our current desire, but to transform ourselves. So if the other way didn't work, why don't you try this one? That's what I'm saying, right? If having stuff didn't make you happy, how about just being happy might make you happy? Let's just jump over the need thing and get right to it. I just want to be happy. Okay, we'll do that. And forget all the other stuff. And practice these simple things, which are largely not about getting, but about being and about generosity. Compassion is just generosity for someone else or for yourself. You're just being generous. You're not going, well, you didn't do it right. You didn't fit my perfect picture of what a perfect person should be like. I'm going to have to, as I say that, I realize I've got some things to clean up. But that's why I love this job. I want to read you something from Hafiz. Do you know who Hafiz is? This ancient poet out of the Sufi tradition. It has not rained light for many days. The wells in most eyes look drought-stricken. Thus, friends are not easy to find in this barren place, where most everyone has become ill guarding nothing. On this primal caravan, careers and cities can appear real in this intense desert heat. But I say to my close ones, don't get lost in them. It has not rained light there for days. Look, most everyone is diseased from making love to nothing. How much is in your closet that you shouldn't have anymore? Right? How much is on your wish list that really won't satisfy? How much has holding on to your sense of righteousness made you miserable? How much has ambition that people think of you in a certain way alienated you from so many other people? How many times have you put yourself in a place of superiority only to feel worse for it in the end? Let's not practice things that don't work. Let's give those up. Lent's a little far away, but we can give them up for Christmas. And we could just be more like a Christed being without going anywhere. I was watching one of my favorite teachers, Rupert Spira, and he says, most people think enlightenment is something special, that it's more dynamic and more transformative, and it's just so exciting to be. He said it's really boring, it's really mundane. He says, a cup of tea is more special. Waking up to your true nature is kind of like not doing the dumb thing. And being who you really are. And the practices of purifying your mind make it easier to be who you are. Now, I will hopefully be able to persuade you to do some practices that can even jump over having a pure mind. But today we're doing a pure mind. And that pure mind is the practice of happiness. The practice of happiness, not the practice of getting or judging or being better than or work or saying polite things to other people so that they will like you. What we're really after here is that you practice being grateful for what you want, what you have, rather than focusing on what you want. Practice being grateful to the person who's nice to you, but then also practicing kindness back. Just do the things we've been talking about for the last 4 weeks and see if you don't have a better Christmas than you had before. Because I have never been to a more consistently reported place than Christmas where people say it really just didn't work for me this year. Have you seen that? A lot of people. It's a very hard time of year. They seem to manage somewhat during the rest of the year, but when it's all about getting, and you don't have it, it hurts. So compassion is good for us right now. We should be compassionate people, but if we're one of those people, try this. Try being grateful for everything. And try giving something to somebody who needs something. That should help. You should feel, and come, if you don't have a place on Christmas Day, come here. We have lunch. Bring something, but come here and eat with people. Join a community in which people are saying, okay, I'd rather be with people than be alone at home with my distress. I'm going to bring my distress to dinner. But you know how they say, suffering shared is suffering halved, and happiness shared is happiness doubled. So come whatever time it's served. I can't think it's 2:00. Come do that. And just practice being grateful. We could start right now. Thank you very much. Thank you. We could start right now. Just be grateful. Just practice gratitude. There must be something minor maybe that you can remember to be grateful for. So let us pray. Let us practice one thing, since it's almost Christmas. Let us be grateful for those who have inspired you in your life. This is a time we celebrate an avatar, a savior, a person who knew himself as the divine presence within. And it's been a long time since he lived, but we still remember him. We could be grateful for Jesus. We could be grateful for our neighbor. We could be grateful for our breath. Let us practice gladness with the help of gratitude and generosity. And so it is. Amen.
I hope you got something out of today's service. We intend to bring you things that will help you in your life become more of who you want to be, give you the freedom of forgiveness and the hope of expectancy that your life will unfold in a way that brings you joy, happiness, and is a contribution to the world. If you would like to contribute to this ministry, please go to unitytriangle.org, hit the donate button, and it will lead you into an easy way of doing that. We thank you for your attention and look forward to seeing you again here.